Hey everyone, Margarita here. I want to give an update on what's been going on with my dad in this video. So, for the past few months, there's been a lot of back and forth with the probate court. And at the 1 year mark, where my mother had custody for about 1 year, they need to do a review every year. And I initially reached out to the new guardian ad litem who was appointed to the situation, and it took him a few weeks to get back to me. And the other issue with this is he has only been an attorney for about 6 months. So he's not very experienced overall. And I thought he was going to at least look into what I was saying. Since he hasn't been working very long, I thought maybe he wasn't corrupted yet. Well, what happened was he listened to everything I said. He must have either not taken me seriously, or didn't believe that the situation was as extreme as it is, which I don't know how you wouldn't believe that with everything that I said to him and some of the things that I sent him. But then reached out to my mother, and she was able to manipulate him fully by repeating delusions, false information. I'm sure their conversation wasn't even that long, and she's able to manipulate people with things that aren't real or problems she's created, or she twists the story. And then after speaking with her, he reached out to the initial guardian ad litem who originally lied in court um, on my mother's behalf several times on several matters and operated against me and didn't do what he was ordered to do. So reached out to this guy, and this guy verified whatever bullshit my mother fed him and re-banned me from the situation instead of realizing there's a serious problem here. At no time was my mother using her guardianship properly. From day one, the intention was to use it to ban me permanently going into the situation. That's not what a guardianship is to be used for. That's not using a guardianship properly. You don't use it to gain control and ban people because you want to have power and control and spread lies and delusions. I knew from the very beginning that was the result. We weren't going to court fighting for guardianship. We're going to court for um, either she's going to get custody and I never see him again, or I'm going to get custody and she's going to be arrested for all of her crimes. So I knew that going into that. The judge was not understanding that because he didn't actually read the entire case file and everything I submitted, or he would have known that. So he left it up to the people he ordered to do the investigation initially. Those two people, Megan Kinder and Mohammed Bazi, lied in court and said that they did that investigation. The judge was never aware that they never actually did it and that they lied in court. So after the 1 year review, I told the new guardian ad litem all of this, and he just re-entered the same stuff that was entered initially, except for initially they accidentally gave me guardianship as well. And I wasn't aware of it because that's not what was said in court. And I didn't receive any documents till almost that 1 year mark, which is what prompted to be looked in the whole case to be looked into. So at that point, I realized I was actually given guardianship, and the second guardian ad litem had said, well, you're a guardian too. And I said, yeah, well, I just found that out though. And after he did his little phone call to my mother and the old guardian ad litem, they were able to manipulate him very easily, and he voided the documents that said I also had guardianship. So after that happened, I looked into other documents that were submitted into my dad's case file, and I realized that my mother hired him a psychiatrist out of the same building in Wayne, Michigan. It's called Apex Behavioral Health. Out of that same building, that's where she fraudulently had me diagnosed with depression at age 16 and got me put on some pills that were never needed, and how she was able to get me charged with a felony and kicked out of high school. She used that place and a psychiatrist at that place initially to do this. So when I seen those documents, she went back to that same place and got a different person to um, basically my dad is seeing this lady, I believe, every day. And what she's doing is she's counteracting the long-term notes and all the documentation that Charmaine has been documenting over the course of the last 6 years. All of the crimes, everything I hired her to document, everything that she saw with her two eyes. And then, she's talked to numerous of my family members. The only person she has not spoken to is my oldest child. And that's because he's been heavily manipulated by his paternal grandmother all this time. But that's out of everybody. She's spoken to everybody regularly over the course of the last 6 years. This is not just me going and telling her things. She saw me physically very injured fighting for my life when she was brought into this situation. She saw me go through treatment daily, and she saw me once a week as that treatment progressed. As I slowly was removing the carbon monoxide and the brain injuries were healing, she very slowly saw me start to recover before her eyes over the course of years. Then she saw me get re-injured a bunch of times. So when it comes to my injury, she physically saw everything I went through, except for the first year that was very extreme, or actually it was like 2 years. I couldn't even get somebody involved. I couldn't even get to them because the injury was so extreme. But 2 years in is when I brought her in. She saw everything from that point forward. So her notes are legit. This is not just me telling her stuff. And then the other reason, not just the injury, but because of my mother's criminal behavior during the course of my injury is why she was brought in, along with the amount of proof and evidence she was having my dad bring to my house at that time. So she was documenting all of this all along the way. Anytime somebody said something or did something or called her, or usually the calls to her were, my mother is able to, like how she places delusional phone calls to many agencies and people. She does this, and 100% of the time she's been able to get people to operate against me on whatever she tells them. Well, this is the reason I brought the woman in, because I was already aware that that's what she'd been doing all these years. So I warned her in advance. My mother didn't find out the woman existed for several months. By the time she figured out she existed and started doing this with her, the lady already saw through her, because like she got to know the real me first, and then she's seen the things my mother was telling her, and it didn't add up. And then I already warned her how she operates, what she was going to be doing, so she knew right away. And then she started to see for herself. So all along the way, all my different family members have talked to her throughout the course of all this time. She has all of this documented. That was the whole purpose of bringing her in. And so my mother's aware of this. So at some point, I'd say a couple months ago, maybe 2 to 3 months ago, my mother got my dad a psychiatrist, and he's been seeing her on the regular. I don't know if it's daily or weekly. It looked like it said daily on the paper. But she's doing this. So what she's doing is, when they're alone, because she's with my dad alone most of the time while he's blind and disabled from the stomach down, and he's at the care facility, and I'm banned, and my kids have not been to see him either. The older two that were coming to see him regularly are no longer doing that, and the younger one is always with me, and so he's been pretty much banned with me. She's sitting there alone with my dad every day, and she's repeating delusions to my dad daily. And that's been going on my entire life. That's how she got him to operate on her behalf during all the escapades she would cause, and how she'd be able to control his behavior and cause some of the problems in my life. Because she has no direct access to me, she was using him to do this. He was her enabler. So she's still repeating the delusions to him daily, repeating to probably, and with the brain damage and everything that's happened to him, and the fact that he's blind and he's just sitting there and he has no interaction with anyone else, I'm sure this is settling in, and it's getting brainwashed into his head, to the point where he probably felt like he needed to talk to somebody, or was crying frequently. And she's just sitting there repeating delusions about me, about what a hot mess I am, how I stole his money, and I did all this and that, and I'm banned because I gave him edibles, and all these things I'm sure she's repeating to him, and none of that's reality. I'm sure she's repeating things about police and this and this. She's repeating all types of delusions to him. So it got to the point, I'm assuming, like he was either crying, or I'm pretty sure it had something to do with him needing to talk to somebody. So she gets him a lady from that same office where she must have some type of, I don't know what it is, because she worked in the medical system, and that's where she made me go when I was 16. She must know somebody who does whatever she says or believes her lies and delusions, and that's why she goes to that facility. Because we lived in Brownstown. Why would we be driving 30 minutes to where this other building is when there's several other places? And the same company had a building like 5 minutes away at that time, 25 years ago. So that makes no sense. I do believe she must know somebody within that facility. She has ties with somebody there or something. But then this is where she also chose to take my dad. So the lady who's been seeing him, she's out of that facility. And what's going on is my mom's repeating delusions to my dad all the time. Then he goes to see her and he's repeating the delusions to this lady. So she documents it like legally. So that way the records are countering what Charmaine has been documenting all along, which that's not going to fly because this lady that my dad's talking to has never talked to anybody else in the family. And she's only been talking to him for a couple months. So I don't know how she thinks this is all going to get fabricated and this is going to win when we already have someone who's documented everything for the last 6 years. And the reason she's brought in is because of these problems and these crimes. So that's what's been going on. And I actually tried to reach out to the lady, and my mother must have gotten in with the people at the front desk who answer the phones, because when I called, they acted like they'd never heard of that lady, that she doesn't work there. They never heard of her, but she does work there. So that tells me that my mother had gotten in and infiltrated and gotten them, in case I ever called or showed up, to make sure that they tell me that that lady's not there, because she knows I'll tell that lady the truth. So what's going on current, this is abuse. This is elder abuse. You are repeating delusions to him, which has been going on my entire life. And then she's going to this place and then getting this false information documented in his medical file about me, which I'm sure that that's most of the delusions coming out of her mouth are probably about me. And that's what he's telling her. And he probably believes that to be real, or it looks like it's real, because she's been doing this to him for so many decades. He doesn't know any different. And it's going to easily work on him because this has been going on forever. So that's what's been going on regarding that matter. And after that, I went back down to the probate court and I filed another petition. And I told the lady at the desk that I wanted to go above the original judge, because he allowed this to go on the first time around with this all playing out fraudulently. And she still gave me the court date with the same judge. So this time around, I was able to speak in the courtroom, and then I stated from the beginning my mother had never had any intention of using the guardianship properly, that this was all, she was getting it to ban me. That's what this was all about. It's to have some type of power and control. And I filled out a 1-page sheet that basically said she's been getting away with decades of serious crimes, including attempted capital M, poisoning batches of food, fraud, numerous things. So I put like numerous crimes that she's gotten away. I didn't put all of them, but I put like some of the more serious ones, and that these are ongoing. And then when I got in court, I let them know the whole court date initially played out with those people lying in court for her. So what he did was he adjourned it for another month. And so I don't have another court date until mid-January. But he says a new guardian ad litem is supposed to reach out to me and talk to only me this time. So I don't know how that's going to go, but my mother's been able to manipulate every person along the way. And that's also what I told the judge. And I was going to kind of cut it short and just say, I actually need federal investigators at this point. And we're to the point we need federal investigators. This is not, this is way beyond this probate situation. This situation is involved in it. It's tied in with all the other decades of crimes. But I almost said that and then I didn't. And he was just like, no, they'll reach out to you. And I was like, okay, thank you. and that's fine. We can kind of start there. And if things don't turn out properly, then I'll state that in the next court date. But what she had was one of her flying monkeys at the care facility was in the video as well. I don't know what she thought this flying monkey was going to say or do, because I've literally never talked to this woman. This woman was the flying monkey that was in the original court date last year. I don't know how she's able to get these people to just say all these things. These things that she's telling these people aren't real. These people don't know me. She comes during the day. When I was there, I was coming in the evening. We're not there at the same time. It's not the same staff. These people don't know me. They don't know anything about me. They know what she told them about me. And then they're going to show up in court and lie on her behalf and state all these things that aren't real. That's what that woman tried to do initially. The woman did not talk this time. But it is the same woman who called 911 on me when I came to see my dad for, it was literally like 2 minutes in October of 2024. So she's the one who called 911 on me, but it's all on delusions. It's whatever my mother's been telling her that these people operate on. And initially, supposedly I was banned for giving my dad marijuana. Okay. But what she's not telling everyone is the full story. So what happened leading up to that is, she was poisoning batches of food as she has all these decades, and it was causing these rushes back to the hospital where he'd be on the verge of being in septic shock, and that's where he'd get rushed back to the hospital. Every time there was a rush back to the hospital, my mother would then pull aside the nurse, whoever was the nurse on staff at that moment, and wherever we were, because it's been 2 different hospitals now at this point. And she would tell them that, or no, 3 hospitals. So she would tell them that he doesn't take his pain meds, or that he only takes a half or a quarter. So it started initially with her wiping it from his chart altogether the first several times she did this. And then she started catching on that I caught on, and I was helping him get it put back in his chart, because he'd be left in extreme pain and suffering, and then he couldn't figure out why. And then I figured out what she was doing. So I'd help him get it put back in his chart, because she was never there at the same time as me the majority of this time. And eventually she caught on, and around April 2024 is when she started to tell them that he only takes half or a quarter, so that way there's still some in his chart, and they'll give him a way smaller dose, so he'll still be left in continuous pain and suffering. And then when he checks, they're going to say, oh yeah, we gave it to you at whatever time. So then she got smart and started doing that. Now, mind you, she worked in the medical system for 45 years. She knows how to manipulate the system. She knows that there's so many nurses involved that they're not all conversing with each other, that she's going to be able to pull it and never get caught, because there's so many transfers, there's so many visits, there's so many nurses, and there's like 3 hospitals. So she knows that none of these people are ever going to talk to each other and figure out that that's what she's doing. But then I caught on. So he was at U of M Ann Arbor at this point, and it was April 2024. And that's when, or it could have been March, but that's when I realized what she had done. And I realized it because whatever nurse was on staff there that day when I caught it, read the actual notes of what was stated regarding his pills. And it said, basically her wording, how he only takes like a half or something. And you could tell by the words, but that's not reality. He's never taken a half ever. So I knew that. And that's why he's laying there in continuous pain and suffering, and he was crying, thinking he was going to die. And that's what he was telling us. My daughter was there, my younger son was there, and I was there. And he couldn't eat. He was crying. He was in so much pain, he thought he was going to die. And then, so they kind of went over things more smoothly, like with a fine-tooth comb on that visit, because U of M Ann Arbor, they have a little bit better quality care than the other hospitals. So after I said, like, well, how can that be? And whoever was his nurse just started reading, the notes and whatever was in there. And I said, that's what it is. I said, it's right there. I said, she keeps pulling it from his chart. And she must have told the last person he only takes half. So that way, they would just tell him he took it, and he would still be left in pain and suffering. Because remember, she has Munchausen by proxy. She intentionally causes physical pain and suffering, physical, mental, and emotional pain and suffering. She's been doing this for decades. So that's part of it. And so I caught on right away. That's when he started asking for edibles, because he was already using them before his injury for some years. She just did not know. He had a lot of knee pain, and he was not getting pain medication, and he was still working at 70 years old. And I believe my mother was also calling his doctor because of some of the things that were said to him when he tried to address this pain with his doctor. I believe she was also calling them to make sure he wasn't given pain medication, which she has a habit of doing this. She has a whole history. There's all these falsified medical records and statements within mine and my son's, and that's why we were left untreated in an extreme medical emergency and why we had to pay at a private facility to stay alive. So that's just one situation, but she's been doing this for a very long time. Now, after that, I'm not sure if they actually straightened out the dosage of his pills or not, because then she started playing more games trying to ban me, or ban me from seeing anything, or something. I don't know exactly. There's a few week period where he was rushed back to the hospital several times. So I kind of have it a little jumbled up. Everything was so chaotic and so fast paced with how she was doing. She was attempting to finish him off very heavily in April of 2024 is what it was. So there was a whole bunch of rushes back to the hospital. But then he asked for the edibles, and I usually make them. And he has bought the ones from the dispensary, or I've gotten them for him, and he eats the gummies as well, or he did before his injury. But at this point in time, I was making them still, because there was periods of time where I didn't make them, and then at this point I was making them again. So I made them for him, and she knew he was eating them. And so he ate them for, I don't know, it was about a week or two. He was eating them regularly. I'm not sure the result of if the pain medication was actually resituated where it should have been. But he was suffering pretty significantly and left that way. And she was causing all of this. So at some point on the next rush back to the hospital at U of M, that's where she was able to have me banned from U of M and the care facility. And she told them to drug test him, knowing that it was going to be found in his system, because she knew he was eating them. And then they find it, and she calls me on the phone, and she laughed like a deranged lunatic, and basically was laughing knowing that they were going to find it in his system, that she was setting me up to be banned. And she had told them a bunch of lies and delusions. So she set this whole thing up, and she knew I was already trying to tell people how she poisons the batches of food. And because I've hired a private lab all those years prior, that I'm already aware that the substance is not generally found when you go to check for it. You have to actually have the category or the actual substance. And I've been aware of this. So by this time, I'm starting to tell the staff this because I already knew. Well, she didn't want to get caught, so this is what she was doing to have me removed. So at that point, I was banned from ever seeing him again until it played out in probate court several months later. And that's where she manipulated those individuals that I was talking about a little while ago. That's how all that ended up playing out. And I've been literally just living in chaos, picking up the fallout of the pieces from all the fallout of all these decades of ongoing crimes. Everything that's gone on the last several years, I'm picking up the pieces to all of that. And I was still working on the $100,000 in damage to my home and the insurance claim, and going back and forth with the insurance company, and then getting back, I get, there's batches of checks that come. So like a couple will come close together, or there'll be smaller ones, and then there'll be like a break, and then there'll be another larger one. It comes dispersed differently each time. It's out of my control. It was based on the percentage of work done initially, and then it shifted into like sections and areas of the house. So it changed on how it was getting dispersed to me, but I've still been going back and forth all this time. And once I was banned, I focused on filming the videos, getting them out there, and doing the work on the house. And I pretty much only worked on that stuff the entire time. And then I was able to get my chamber, my hyperbaric chamber for my home up and running during that time also, and had to get back to treating because I had gone without treatment for some months. So there was numerous issues I was dealing with. All this is all fallout from her ongoing crimes and all her escapades. So that's what I was dealing with in the past year. Once I got those other papers at the end of the summer, that's when I realized my name was on the thing for the guardianship and that they accidentally entered my name. And that's where I started to make moves to like basically make sure I could see my dad again and overturn what's been going on. Because if I could get some of these matters situated, I'll be able to address other things or work on other things or take care of my dad or whatever it is. I have other matters that have to be, attended to, but it's going to be a lot easier if I get everything situated, as much things situated as possible from all the fallout of everything she's caused. So I basically spent that entire time working on everything I'd been working on, and then started to readdress the situation with my dad at the end of the summer. So it's kind of played out for a few months, going back and forth with this and that and everything that's gone on regarding that. And now I'm waiting on the next court date, which is in like, 2.5, 3 weeks. So that's kind of where things are at regarding that. But she did not tell anybody the reason I was banned. So you're banning me because he asked for edibles because you pulled his pain pills from his chart numerous times to intentionally cause physical pain and suffering. On top of the fact that in order to pull those from his chart, he had to get back to an actual hospital where you were then able to pull it. But the reason he's being rushed back to the hospital is due to her poisoned batches of food. So those are all crimes. That's actually the reason he was asking for the edibles. He was not asking for them prior to that because the pain was better managed before she started tampering with the pain meds. So that's the actual reason for the edibles that he was asking for. And where we live in Michigan, it is recreational, it is medical. It's not a crime to do what I did. And a few days ago, Trump reclassified how marijuana is classified because older people are in pain or people with serious injuries use it in order to be more functional, to have a better quality of life. And I'm one of those people because if I was not a medical marijuana patient, I probably wouldn't be alive. I wouldn't have been able to barely get to work the little bit that I did during the extreme part of my injury and get the money that I did to pay for the treatment. We wouldn't have survived without 100%. We would have been gone in 2019. So I am one of those patients. I am speaking from personal life experience. I was on a variety of different products very heavily the first 4 years or so of the injury, and significantly less of the products after like I reached the 4-year mark and things started to, I crossed several thresholds. So he knew that I used all these different products along the way and he was using them before his injury. That's why he asked for them. It is not illegal to do what I did. And if you think about this logically, she's not neurotypical whatsoever. In 2025, we're at the end of 2025. Marijuana is very close to being federally legal. It has to be done in stages, obviously. But to tell everybody that I'm on drugs repeatedly and then say that I'm banned forever because I brought my dad, who's in severe pain, that she's caused him, edibles that he asked for, and he's literally crying, thinking he's going to die. That's not a reason to ban somebody. That's not neurotypical behavior. And then to keep repeating to people that I'm on all these drugs and she's referring to marijuana. That's not logical. In this day and age and how things work and where we're located specifically, it's not neurotypical at all. You can tell that there is something bigger to this agenda. It's not just that. So when Charmaine had a phone conversation with her, I'd say about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, I think she had a phone conversation with her. And she asked, the reason I was banned. I said, because now the reason keeps changing. Because she's saying, oh, it's because of this marijuana. And then she shifted it and she said, oh, well, it's because I fraudulently had power of attorney documents signed and stole his money. So these are two separate situations. Well, that's not what happened there either. And she tried to say in court, well, the police, something, something, something. I cut her off. Doesn't matter. The police, nothing. The police are involved in the crimes. The police offered to stage the crimes because they're involved in taking money from my stolen trust fund, and you're going to pay them once I'm locked up and you access the funds. They're taking bribery payments to guarantee that I get locked up for these crimes that I didn't commit. So the police, nothing. The police have nothing to do with this. The police didn't investigate, and they wrote a bunch of false reports. So I cut that off immediately. Didn't even let her say nothing about the police, nothing. But then she tells Charmaine, so she tells Charmaine that over the phone, tells her that the the other reason that I'm banned is because of all this, because I got some fraudulent documents signed and then I stole his money. Okay, well, that's not reality. And because the police didn't investigate, no one has reality except for Charmaine and me. So the reality of all this is the fact that her power of attorney documents are fraudulent. People were just going by the date that hers were signed, not looking into the proof and the facts that I have of the fact that he never signed those with her. He wasn't well enough to sign them when hers were signed. He didn't know he signed them, which is why he then signed them with me. We had been in communication about this from the very beginning of his injury. We talked about it at least 20 times. And Charmaine also has this documented every step of the way because this came up numerous times during his injury. It came up at numerous hospitals as he was going to different hospitals along the way. They have that in his medical records all along the way based on whatever date it was. You'll be able to tell that there wasn't one in place. But what it was is her documents were fraudulent. She slipped them in with, he thought he was signing for the work to be done on his house because workers' comp was paying for it. He did not know there was power of attorney documents in there or a quit claim deed to his house. And then I showed his physical state of being in the one video I released, proving that he had no idea he signed them because of the condition that he was in. So that's in the video that's labeled Part 1. Brownstown Detective Mike Ramsey promises my mother false fraud charges on me. There's the state of his physical being in that video. But so her documents were fraudulent from day one. She didn't even try to present them to anybody. She was hiding it because she knew what she did was wrong. She knew they weren't actually legally signed properly, and she only presented them to the care facility and then once to U of M once he got to that hospital. She had financial ones slipped in there as well. She also did not present these anywhere at any time. She cashed out his 401k, did not present the documents 10 days after attempting to finish him off at the beginning of 2024. She then produced the documents to U of M after I produced the ones that I had signed to U of M. She then, oh no, see, I had them all along. And she kept doing this. And then she did this with 2 different banks. Oh no, I've had them all along. If you truly had power of attorney all along, you would have used them properly. You would have pulled them out. You would have presented them. You would have been getting his financial affairs in order. You would have been paying off the different debts since you cashed out the 401k, you would have paid off the different debts with the 401k money. She didn't do that. She didn't assess anything. She had no intention of doing this. She took that money, moved it directly into trust for herself, didn't assess anything. 6 months go by, and then I pop up with the real documents that we finally got signed that we've been talking about for over a year at that point. And then she's trying to say, oh no, I've had them all along to all these places. No, because if you really had them all along, you would have used them properly right when you got them and done things properly with every hospital and every bank and every situation. And none of that was done. And I can prove it. So that was what was behind all of that. The reason they're trying to say mine are fraudulent, which they're not. He knew he signed mine. I have a notary who talked to him for an hour who said, basically, he's in the right frame of mind. You just can't see, and his arms don't work well. And they even talked about how my mom fraudulently cashed out his 401k. And I have proof from the beginning of his injury when he was fully with it of him telling her by text not to touch his money. Their money is separate. I had my money. You had yours. And you can tell by the different texts between them during the beginning of his injury, she does not know how to manage finances and doesn't know anything about their finances, or was not even trying to learn, because he went on paying his own bills for about 8 months until she tried to finish him off once he was released into her care for one weekend. And I warned the care facility about this in advance prior to him even checking in there. And they did it anyway, and that was the result. That's how he got the trach tube. So I have plenty of proof that proves that she should have never had her hands on anything that was his. And then let's say he did sign those power of attorney documents legitimately, but he didn't, and I can prove it. She still didn't use them properly. She wasn't assessing anything properly, and she had no intention of doing so. She was forced to, because then I showed up with the ones I had signed, which were the legit ones that he was aware that he signed. But nobody looked at it properly. Nobody actually investigated. The police are in on the crimes against me because they're participating and promised bribery money, and they're trying to gain access to the rest of my stolen trust funds. So that was the purpose of him promising her to charge me with fraud, without investigating. Because at one point I reached out to him, and he also was not trying to call me back, and then was not listening to anything I said on the phone. And at no time was he still ever trying to investigate anything. He was just moving forward with the charges, no questions asked, when I'm sitting here with all the proof, reaching out to him myself, telling him I have the proof. And then they staged a false trespassing incident in front of their house. So that was on the video. I believe it's Brownstown Police video number 3 that I released earlier this year. And it shows the body cam footage of the staged trespassing incident. She was making it look like I'm a broke loser who needs to steal tools, and I'm just a drug addict and a loser, and I have nothing going on in my life, and here I am coming to steal tools, when here I have a house bigger than theirs, and it had over 100 grand in damage, and it's due to the fallout of my mother's crimes and escapades. And we were there to get some of the tools, which my dad said I could have numerous times, tools she does not know how to use. And I had 2 carloads of people who were all working for me during that month, and we were working at a very rapid rate. We were on a time limit with how the checks were being dispersed, and she was playing these delusional games, telling them that I'm a broke loser coming to steal tools, not that I'm a business owner and I have business running and I have a lot of matters running, and I'm chronically sick, permanently injured, trying to take care of everything. I'm trying to take care of this specific situation on a time limit. She staged it to make it look a certain way to them. So when I got there, they really believed I was just trespassing based on whatever she said. And she did it all behind my dad's back. We had the conversation with my dad. She helped him use his phone that day, knowing we were coming there. So if she truly had a problem with it, she could have just said, oh, no, you can't have it. Well, that's not what she did, because that wasn't the issue. She's trying to stage a false trespassing incident to help back up these delusions. So she stepped into the hallway, walked away from my dad, called her little buddy, Detective Ramsey, and then gets the cops to sit out front to stage this incident. So that's what all happened regarding that matter. And then also, when it comes to the other bank account that my mom's name wasn't on, that bank viewed me as power of attorney. I used those funds properly. The funds were being used to feed him. Mind you, I had spent well over 10 grand feeding everybody during these running around escapades and rushes back to the hospital in these abrupt circumstances. I'd spent over $10,000 feeding everybody, and then removing his food and replacing with clean food that whole first year. And then there became a point where I was in limbo waiting on the larger insurance check, because it took way too long. It took about 8 months to get that first large check in hand. So just for like maybe a month, I'd say, I went and got a little bit of money from that bank account so my daughter can continue to bring him the clean food, because we were removing the poison food my mother was leaving for him, and I was replacing it with whatever I was making for dinner that day, and I would have her bring it to him, because at that point I was banned. So that's where the money went. I have receipts for where it went. And then the truck that he drove, that my daughter now drives, needed work done on it. And the place still has the deposit. I didn't even take enough money to fix the whole thing, but the place still has the deposit. I still have the receipt. The work is not done. And the other money was taken to hire him an attorney for probate court, because he needed a guardian because of how she kept poisoning his food and getting him near death, causing all the problems she's causing. And when I paid the attorney, he stole the money and never filed the case. And I ended up having to file the case myself. And by the time I got any of the money back, so long had went by. It had already played out in probate court. There was like, it was so far gone at that point. He actually had to hire himself an attorney because he kept the money. And when I tried telling the detective that, he omitted that from his report, did not write any of that, did not look into it, didn't even ask the bank whose name was on the money orders, because they were made out directly to the attorney. Legitimately, the attorney stole it. And so now she's trying to say that I create all these problems. I stole his money. I did this. I did that. No, that's what she did. A narcissist accusations are truths about themselves. So that can all be proven. I showed those the like check stub receipts for the money orders. I show it in the Detective Mike Ramsey promises my mother false fraud charges on me, the second video. There's 2 parts to it. It's in the second one. I show the checks in that video. That's who stole his money, not me. Like, he needed an attorney. And because he didn't have the attorney, the court case played out fraudulently. And now my youngest and I have been banned from my dad for over a year. That's not what you use a guardianship for. She orchestrated every step of the way. She's a little busybody. She's behind the scenes causing all this chaos, all this destruction, all this harassment. She's in the mix of all these crimes she's committed. And she's got all these other people helping her commit the crimes, and they have no problem doing it and no consequences to any of them. So that's actually what went on regarding that entire situation. Nothing she's telling anybody is reality. I didn't steal anything from anyone. I wasn't even trespassing or stealing tools. I'm over here trying to take care of business, and she's acting like I'm just some broke loser trying to steal some tools that she doesn't even know how to use, that are probably older than me. Which also does not make sense, because directly after this whole incident, and then I stated it in the video. So if you go back and watch the Brownstown Police video number 3 from a long time ago, it was probably about 8 months ago. When you go back and you watch the video, then I state like how these people all work for me. They're all being paid by the hour. Now I've wasted a whole bunch of money coming to play some delusional game and paying all these people by the hour. And then right after that, so then because this is a homeowner's claim, I have a receipt. We had to go straight to Home Depot and buy the same damn tools at Home Depot. So now we lost an hour playing a delusional game when she could have just flat out said on the phone, "Oh, we don't want you to have them." That's not what was going on. She had to do it behind my dad's back. She couldn't say that on the phone. That's why she went and had a whole fake police incident staged. But then we went to Home Depot and we purchased the tools. So the receipt is time and date stamped. Why would I pay people by the hour to play a delusional game for no reason and then turn around and go to the store and buy the same exact tools brand new for $600 and some dollars? That makes no sense. I don't have time to waste. She is telling these people that I'm a broke loser, never made it in life, don't have shit going on. I'm permanently disabled and 100% self-made, self-built. I have more on my plate than I can handle, and it's been that way since the day of my injury. I do not have time to waste. I don't have time to play games. She is telling these people the exact opposite type of person that I am. She doesn't even know anything about me. Everything that's ever come out of her mouth about me is all delusions. So that's actually what happened regarding the 2 matters I'm supposedly banned for. So, you know, those matters aren't even legit. They're not real situations. She's leaving out all the information and what led to each situation. So that way she looks like this great person and I look like this mental disorder drug addict thief. And none of that's real. And not only that, like, marijuana is not a drug anymore. It was never a drug. It's a freaking plant. So, I mean, that's delusional in itself, telling everybody I'm on drugs. I'm just this loser. I'm on all these drugs. And she's really talking about marijuana. And really, I'm like independently self-made, self-built, like been wiped out all these times because of her crimes and escapades, and still building and providing everything without Social Security and assistance and child support. She's a sick bitch. Somebody needs to apprehend her. So all of it's extremely delusional. She needs to be put away. This is not what you use a guardianship for. Like, she went into it with that intention. And not only that, prior to these two, like, supposedly this is why I'm banned incidences that have now occurred, prior to that, several months prior to this, she already had me banned from the Vibra Hospital in Taylor, Michigan. And so she did this way before all that. Had me banned for some other reason. I don't know what she told them. I don't know what she told them, but the two people involved in that were Makia Moore and Celesta Washington. When that all happened, I asked for a detective in Taylor, and I said I need at least one detective, I need at least two cops, and I need a table and a room and a pen and a piece of paper. And they refused to call the cops. They refused to help me. They believed whatever she told them about me, and they banned me. And it was her creating the escapade that led to me coming there. And I forget what it was about, because there were several things she had pulled around this time. But I had to go in there and basically tell her she's going to prison. And it ended with me being banned because she went over there and she climbed the ladder because she worked for them for all those decades. So she climbed the ladder. They believe everything she says, and she tells them all these delusions about me. And they then ban me on whatever bullshit she told them. So she already was working on having me banned from there prior to all of this. So it's not about the edibles. It's not about this supposed false documents and this supposed thievery of money that was never stolen. It's not about any of that. She was already working on doing this. And at the root, it's because I've been trying to tell people all the rushes back to the hospital are caused by her poisoned batches of food. We can pull it up in his medical records before his injury. He was going to his primary doctor with all these severe urinary tract infections repeatedly. And it was because every time he came to my house to work on something, that's when she poisoned him again. And it would happen again and again and again. It was happening so frequently. There's a huge list of visits for like the several years leading up to his injury of these severe UTIs. It just wasn't affecting him to the degree it is since his injury. So it started turning into sepsis and septic shock after the injury. It was just a urinary tract infection prior. So all of this can be verified. This has nothing to do with like anything to do with me. These are all delusions. She's been committing all these crimes, and then I'm trying to tell people what she's doing. So she's got to make sure I get banned so I don't tell anybody anything else. And she's got to make sure people believe delusions about me so no one listens to me. That's what's actually going on. So then once my dad went unconscious in the beginning of 2024, which was due to my mother trying to finish him off after the 401k fight about she found out there was less than $100,000 in his 401k. And then they had a huge fight about it when he was in the hospital. And then he told me everything. And then she tried to finish him off the next day. And I even watched her leave with the food that day because I happened to be sitting not too far from being able to see her walking out with the food to go take to him that day. But that's what happened. And during that time, he was only in that hospital for a few weeks. And then while he was still not with it at all, she moved him and transferred him back to Vibra, where I was already previously banned. And she did that so I wouldn't be able to tell anybody what was going on or that she keeps doing this. Because I kept saying something every time this would happen. And the people at the hospital he was at when that all happened started to catch on to the pattern I was saying. So she moved him when he was unconscious to the place where I was already banned from. So he actually had to, when he started to come to, he was wondering why I wasn't there. And then my daughter's yelling at me in a disrespectful manner, basically trying to say I needed to try to come there anyway. And I said, I can't. If he needs me there, you need to help him advocate for himself. Tell them that he wants me there because I'm not going to come there otherwise. Because at this time I was on probation. There was already so many different incidences where I had police contact, and all during this, it's my mother's escapades and crimes and harassment. Everything she's causing is the reason for all the different police contact that I've had on probation. So at this point, I don't want there to be any more police contact. In the background, at the same time this is going on, she's calling this probation officer in Monroe County, Stephanie Pride. She is calling her repeatedly and telling her all this bullshit about me that isn't real, that my injury isn't real. I'm faking being injured. I'm always known to lie. I don't know what the hell. She's something along those lines. She's telling her all this shit, getting her to harass me, getting her to keep me on probation longer, getting her to try to lock me up, she's working that angle while she's attempting to try to do things so I get locked up and have police contact on the side. That's what's actually going on. So that's why I wasn't going to attempt to just go to the hospital either. There were several other incidences all around that same time as well, where like there was like I did have to walk into numerous police departments for numerous reasons. So she created all this chaos, all this destruction. I had no choice. All these police officers are operating against me, screaming her delusions at me. She's called every single one of them. So that had happened so many times at this point. And then there was another situation with my daughter. And that's why I was mad and why I had come there in the first place. She's the one creating all of this. And that's why I got banned from Vibra initially. So when all this is going on, no one is actually, speaking to me. At no time is anyone sat down or taken my report or listened to reality. Everybody's operating 100% on this deranged lunatic's lies and her delusions, and she's just going on and on about all this stuff about me that's never been real, and it's her committing all the crimes, and she's creating all the chaos. So that's what's actually been going on. And this matter goes way beyond like me being banned for like these edibles or this stolen money or whatever. Because she was already trying to ban me prior to that. So she did that, months prior. And then my daughter had to help him advocate for himself to at least get me in there. And I'm not sure what was said to who, on how I got back in there or whatever, but that eventually I did make it back into the Vibra hospital. But then a few months later, that's when these other two circumstances took place. So the whole time she was trying to ban me. That's what the whole point was. And in the background here, she was trying to have me locked up for like being on probation and having police contact, having other things happen. Well, she's causing those things to happen. She's repeating delusions to my daughter. She's getting my daughter to act a certain way. She's calling these police stations I'm having to make reports at. She's reporting bullshit to them too. She's been doing it for decades. This is not something new. She created all of this. And I will get to I'll have to make a separate video on this. But the whole reason I'm even on probation is fraudulent. That's part of the setup. So I'll get there in its own video as well. The whole thing, every situation along the way, she's at the root of. These are crimes. This is harassment. So that's actually what's going on. At no time should have I ever been on probation that long. I shouldn't have even had the charges in the first place. It was all a complete setup. There's a lot of people involved in what happened to me there. But what she was going for was trying to have me thrown in jail long term so she could access the rest of my trust fund. So that's part of what's going on with my dad. But in the background, she'd already caused these other circumstances to happen previously, to where I'm always dealing with fallout from what she causes. That was going on. I was still on probation for that last situation. So that way, when there's problems with my dad, she's manipulating and calling each person in each department and the probation officer and whoever I have to contact because of all the problems she's created along the way. And then the damage to my house happened at that time as well. And it caused all these additional problems that required a police report because the amount that the damage was over $100,000, and it was criminal negligence. And the police were screaming her delusions at me, refusing to take the report. So, I mean, this just goes way beyond like her just trying to say that I'm banned and trying to make it look like I'm this horrible person. I did all these things. None of that's reality. Nobody's letting me speak my truth. Nobody's investigating properly. No one's wanting to listen to me. She just says she's the mother and I've always been a problem, and that's reality, and they believe her. Now, one person has ever sat down and talked to me and let me show the proof. I have proof of every step along the way. I can spell the whole thing out for you. That's the whole point of me releasing all these videos, because nobody's investigating properly. There's a lot of people involved in these crimes. I have the proof. I know who they are. And it goes way beyond that. This is just one situation. So yeah, regarding my dad, I don't know what's going to happen until a couple more weeks from now is the next court date. So I don't know, like everybody's corrupt at this point in my eyes. I don't even know if they're going to do things properly, or, I mean, it really needs to be turned over to the FBI, because there's many different facilities and individuals with power and many different crimes at this point that need to be investigated. It's not just this or that. And I 100% have proof of everything that I've said and what the problem actually is. So I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to see him ever again, or if this bullshit's just going to keep going on and on and on. But you can tell that this is not neurotypical behavior. You can tell by the things she's saying that this is not neurotypical behavior. And you're coming up with all these avenues of things to say that I did, just in case one fails, you got another excuse. And I mean, even when she filed her initial petition, she tried to say, because you have to notify any adult children or any parents, she didn't even do that, didn't even list me that I exist. And then a few lines above it said that I'm a mental disorder drug addict and I stole a bunch of money from him. A few lines up on the same page, but then failed to write that I even exist. And then the judge even said he didn't know I existed. And then she also didn't follow proper procedure and send me any court documents at any point during this. So there were several things that played out fraudulently with the original case. And you can tell that that's what she's going for. She's just writing false information. She tells everybody the false information. They operate on her behalf. They just believe her. That's insane. This is a deranged lunatic. There's not 1 ounce of truth coming out of her mouth. So because somebody is old and in severe pain and the wife is a deranged lunatic pulling their pain meds and they're crying thinking they're going to die asking for edibles, you think I wouldn't bring them? That's crazy. That's crazy to think any logical person would bring the old incapacitated person in pain the edibles they're asking for, especially when the wife is getting away with all these crimes and abuse. It's technically abuse because what she's doing is causing him to be in severe pain intentionally. So everybody else in the world would have done the same thing I did. And it's not even a crime. But what she's been doing every step of the way, these are all crimes. So, I mean, I don't know how many crimes I just named in this one video, but I named at least 10 different crimes, and it's more than just her that's involved. So, yeah, I'm just hoping like the new guardian ad litem actually looks into this, or even if he doesn't, if the judge can just like hand this over to the feds, I can bust the entire thing open and, arrest can finally be made and the money that's stolen from me can eventually be turned over to me. Because now at this point, what's happened is where she moved the money she stole from my dad, she also had been saving the money she fraudulently gained access that she took from me, and she's moved all of it together into trust for herself at the place, which is Shea Law has the place in Southfield, Michigan. That's who is holding the stolen money. So they're holding my dad's stolen 401k, and they're holding the bits of the stolen trust fund that she was able to siphon out of the account somehow along the way by presenting herself to have custody of my older 2 kids. She mixed it all together, moved it all into trust for herself 10 days after attempting to finish my dad off. So that's really where things are at. And I need someone to actually look into this, not just keep playing along with all these delusions, all these games. None of it's reality. There's so many people involved in the crimes at this point. It's just growing and growing and growing. But I do have enough to make arrests. So that's what needs to happen next. I'll be back with an update after the court date. Thanks. Bye.